Welcome to Tuesday. Happy Veterans Day. It's November 11th, 2025. Your Day with the Podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at wyomingadvocates.com or call 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. Well, on this Veterans Day, this is what we're watching for you. Mild Pacific weather will dominate through Thursday. What do I mean by that? It's just we're all going to be breathing Pacific air, so it's going to be very mild. There'll be some minor fluctuations in temperatures. We'll still have these high and mid-level clouds, but today, tomorrow, and Thursday, there's just very little going on over the western half of the nation as that cold wave continues in the far eastern areas of the U.S. Now, by the end of the week here, the West Coast will be affected by this approaching trough. It really starts on Thursday and certainly by Friday. And that trough is going to be interesting because it's going to split with one piece going down into the southwestern United States. Then the other piece of the trough will end up sweeping through the northern Rockies as a bit of a cool front. And then we're going to have what we call the pick and roll pattern for the weekend. For you basketball aficionados, you'll understand what I mean by a pick and roll, and you'll see that here in a minute. Kind of an interesting setup that will make for a very tricky forecast for the weekend and into the early portions of next week. Now, a lot of you were out walking the dog or enjoying just being outside yesterday evening, as it was quite nice in many areas. And boy, the clouds put on a show with another beautiful sunset really all throughout the region. Lots of color, lots of pinks, lots of purples. Just a beautiful November evening. You don't get November evenings like what we had yesterday from Cody to Cheyenne and really all throughout the Intermountain West. The high and mid-level clouds, a little bit of a lenticular shape to some of those clouds, just putting on just quite the show. And hopefully we'll have more of those opportunities here in the coming evenings because they're going to be mild and we're going to have clouds just like this overhead here over the next few days. So get out, enjoy the fresh air, the mild temperatures, and these beautiful sunrises and sunsets throughout the West and the region. And you can see just putting on a show even up in the Gillette area. Gillette warmer than Florida. And we'll just take a look at that here in a moment. Up around Bighorn. So it's just everywhere. Just look at those colors. Look at the clarity. Just a beautiful evening. And we're going to see more of that. Now, speaking of evenings and wanting to be outside, overnight, very early this morning, we had an X-flare. And it was a 5.1. We showed you that sunspot yesterday was facing the Earth. So now we have a very strong X-flare, the strongest coming out of the sunspot so far. So sky watchers, be ready the next 2 nights. Now, as we know, these predictions are really, really tricky to try to figure out what's going on. But what we have are 2 coronal mass ejections heading towards Earth. Now, right now, the timing is that maybe the strongest could happen tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, but tonight is in the picture. Again, these are very hard to predict, but if you're an aurora watcher, you're going to want to really be ready just in case something comes up. We have not 1, but 2 coronal mass ejections heading towards Earth, as you can see there in the graphic. And we have what could be what's called a cannibal CME, where the 2 kind of become 1, and the second one overtakes the first one. So this is a very, very active solar pattern that we're in at the moment. Not a lot to show you on the satellite imagery other than a lot of lenticular clouds, high-level clouds coming off the mountains and those wave functions, but really very little else going on other than patches of high and mid-level clouds elsewhere. What's going on in the Deep South? Well, the Deep South is very cold. Look at this, 35 in Apalachicola. That's right on the Gulf Coast. 30-degree temperatures here in the Florida Panhandle, lots of 20s all the way down into Louisiana and down into the low to mid-30s along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana as well. And look at 39 down in Tampa. Hopefully this wasn't the week you were headed to Florida because it's colder there than it is here because of this mild flow of air. Talked about we're going to be breathing Pacific air. So we're cut off from Canada here at the moment. So it's all about the Pacific, west to east across the nation. And the cold air that's currently right here behind that trough will get swept up and will go out into the Atlantic. This will allow a lot of the nation to have a moderation in temperatures between now and the end of the week. So this is where we are today. By Friday morning, so between now and Friday, not much going on, but by Friday morning, notice we have a splitting trough. That trough up in the Gulf of Alaska swings in, and this low pinches off. So basically, they separate. The trough splits into two. So trough, as it splits, will send a cold front into the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies Friday night into Saturday. This will drag a cool front through the Northern Rockies, while this guy gets left behind. High pressure building in behind it. So this is fairly straightforward through Friday, meaning the Pacific Northwest and California, you're going to get wet. There's a good amount of moisture with this trough. So as it comes in, the West Coast gets wet. The Pacific Northwest gets wet as we get into the end of the week. And moisture will get pushed out ahead of it. Colder air is going to come in behind it. So it's straightforward through Friday. Now, after Friday is where it gets a little bit more tricky. So this is Friday morning. This is around noon Saturday. Notice how quickly the splitting trough, at least the northern part of it, goes all the way up into south central Canada, into the Dakotas and Minnesota. There'll be a cold front coming by there. There'll be some showers and some cooler temperatures. But this guy gets left behind. It gets left behind and is going to bring wet weather to Southern California. So it's going to bring some snow to the Sierras and some needed rain to California. That's always good to see. Back here is another wave coming in out of the Gulf of Alaska. We call this a kicker, where this wave here will kick this guy out. And so when this comes in, this has to move. So basically, as this comes in, this has to move to allow this system to come on through. What is tricky here is this needs room to kick out because the jet stream up here could retard its direction to the north and keep it suppressed to the south. But if something changes a little bit more here, this could go more north or it could go more east. So we call this the pick and roll. So in basketball, you set a pick, you go stand in front of somebody to make room for the next guy to go get the ball and make a basket. So the pick and roll is this. This guy right here comes through, creating a cutoff low. That then creates room for him to come up this way as this next trough approaches. And so what we'll see happening, this is for Saturday, we're going to see that low come across the divide out into the plains, out into the eastern plains by early next week. And we'll show you that here in a minute. So precipitation through Thursday looks like this. So you can see central and northern California are going to get a good rain. Some good snows in the Sierras as well coming on in. And by the same time, Friday evening. So this is Thursday evening. By Friday evening, we're seeing snow move into Wyoming's western mountains and valleys, across Idaho into Montana's western mountains, as that first low, the pick and roll, comes across the north. We've got the low down here. We've got that upper level low that's moving this way. So once we get into Friday, things start to get a little bit more busy, at least along and west of the divide. But what about east of the divide here where there's nothing going on? It's boring. Well, this is where we see things get a bit more interesting. That upper low in Southern California, the main piece of it does eject to the northeast. So by Monday morning, it's over northwest areas of Colorado. That's going to bring moisture from the Pacific coast into the central Rockies. Some cooler air will be left behind by that cool front that goes up along the west coast. So we'll have some cooler air sitting up here for this low to work with as it comes into Colorado. So this is by Monday morning. So by the end of the weekend into early next week, there will be something over the Intermountain West and the Central Rockies in the form of this low. The question is going to be, where is this guy going to go? Because it's small. This is on the scale of a small weather system. This is not a very large storm system, but since there's moisture with it, and it does look like there's going to be some upslope, it will be a weather maker. Its footprint, though, is just going to be small. its precipitation footprint. And this far out, we're going to have a hard time pinpointing its track. The European model wants it over southeastern Colorado by early morning Monday. That would bring counterclockwise flow upslope into Colorado, upslope into Wyoming, western Nebraska. Then we have this next system, the kicker coming in behind it with some colder air. So the AI version, okay, is more to the north and west right here. And you can see it's different along the west coast compared to there. So there's some differences, but the tune is similar. The Canadian model is very similar to the European model. The GFS model is very similar, but it's a little bit more north and west. The UK Met is further west back towards Denver. Now you might say, well, there's really not much of a difference there. Well, for a system this small, there's a huge difference in the impacts on who gets the rain and snow out of the system and who doesn't. But it does look like we'll have some weather to deal with during that time frame of overnight Sunday into Monday and Tuesday. And then as you can see off to the west, there's some type of system coming in right behind it. So stay tuned. In the meantime, enjoy the quiet weather.